If you care about something enough to put your heart and soul into it and to be broke and to not do it to make money, if you do that for long enough, I think your soul kind of goes into it and that kind of comes through. There's like a realness to art when somebody puts everything they have into it.
Welcome, folks, to another fine episode of the Pencil Pushers Podcast, where we celebrate the love of the hand-drawn arts. I'm your humble host, Mike Rosado, and today's guest is artist, writer, and creative director at Liquid Death, Will Carsola. Based in Los Angeles, yeah, for sure. Will creates work at the intersection of humor, horror, and bold visual storytelling, drawing inspiration from cartoons, comics, and underground culture. His style is irreverent, graphic, and unmistakably his own. Will is a co-creator of Adult Swim's Mr. Pickles and Mama Named Me Sheriff, and has played a key role in shaping the visual voice and character-driven storytelling behind Liquid Death, one of the most disruptive brands of the last decade, at least, I think now. We'll talk about where Will grew up, what fascinated him as a kid, how he fell in love with art and animation, how those early obsessions turned into real opportunities for him in his career, which has been pretty remarkable. We'll also dig into his creative process, working with big brands and advice for young designers trying to carve their own path. So without further ado, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy my chat with Will. So, Will, welcome to the podcast, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. It's Friday. As I think I mentioned to you earlier, we just moved into a house on Sunday. We're here in North Carolina. We're about to get this nasty cold weather. So it's going to be a pretty freezing rain, pretty much a lot of freezing rain. So I think we're going to have 3 kids holed up in a house for a few days when they should be at school. So it's going to be a fun time.
They are going to have a blast. I miss snow days on the East Coast in Virginia. Man.
Yeah, are you originally from Virginia?
Yeah, I'm from Virginia, and I remember a couple years we were out of school for like a week or two. We got so much snow. It was
Right.
great. No power at the house, just like cooking ramen noodles on a wood stove, playing in the snow all
That's
day.
a
Great.
Yeah, for sure. How long were you basically raised in Virginia?
Yeah, with the exception of a couple years where I lived in near LA when I was 6 and 7, but yeah, born in Virginia and pretty much raised there.
Oh yeah, what were you doing in LA during that time?
My dad just got a job out here for a couple years, and I loved it. I love Virginia, but I also love California. And when we moved from California back to Virginia in the middle of a blizzard, I was a little bit bummed
Wow.
because I was walking away from like friends that I was learning to skateboard with at that time and trading Garbage Pail Kids, and nobody was really into that in Virginia at the time where I lived, kind of out in,
Wow.
small town. But
Okay.
there's so many things that I love about Virginia and California, and I guess I'm lucky to have kind of experienced both sides,
Yeah,
both
for
worlds.
sure. Now, I know that you had mentioned this before about Garbage Pail Kids. So, I was a massive Garbage Pail Kid fan.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed uh, Brett, who's like an incredible. I don't know if you're familiar with Brent Ingstrom. He's an incredible Garbage Pail illustrator now. He's like one of the modern artists.
I mean, look, I
He is an
think so.
absolute master. It's Berent Engstrom, Engstrom, I think. And his style is like classic. He's a Garbage Pail Kids.
Oh
And that
yeah,
was a
yeah, I
real
follow him
treat,
on it.
dude. Yeah, he's a total badass and like probably one of the most humble artists you'll ever meet in the world. But yeah,
Yeah, it's so cool.
that was at a time when, for me at least, when I was just kind of getting an understanding of what it's like to actually check out art that fit my age group, but was also weird and out
Yeah,
there, kind of fit my boy sensibility. Like, is that one of the
same.
starting points for you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like I have a 5-year-old son now, and he's about to turn 6 in a few months. And I'm like, wow, I am not comfortable with him doing the things I was doing when I was 6, which was like just, not even telling my parents I'm leaving the house at all, but like getting on a bike and riding a couple miles to the store to buy
Oh yeah.
Garbage Pail Kids. That was like my thing. And yeah, I would steal like 100 pennies from my parents' penny jar, count them all out, put them in a plastic bag, ride all the way like a mile or two to the store at
Right.
6, and then get one pack. I think they're about $1, and then dump out 100 pennies onto the counter. Just totally unaware that like, I was being a pain in the ass to some clerk, and they count them all out. And then I would check out the cards, eat the gum, and yeah, it was so gross and funny, and definitely had a big impact on me, I think, as far as like comedy, weird art, horror. Garbage Pail Kids kind of had it all. Mad
Yeah.
Balls too.
Yeah, Mad Balls, Mad Magazine. Obviously,
Mhm.
it was just a little bit out of my periphery, but later I came to it, which was it's the same artist who did the Topps cards, but it was oh man, I'm drawing a blank on what they were called, but they were the ones where they were doing mocks, like mock style versions of product lines where they take like a
Hmm.
toothpaste and they take like cigarettes and they change the name of it. I forget what it was called. I'll remember it later. But it was the same, dude. You would love
I
if you
don't
haven't
know
heard of
about
it.
that. That sounds like right up my alley. It sounds like something I'd be doing now, but I don't.
Yeah, I'll have
That
to.
doesn't ring a bell.
Oh my God. Now I'm gonna have to take a look. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm curious. They were trading cards.
Wacky packages. That's what it is. Wacky packages.
Let's see.
Dude, you would love this stuff. If you do like a quick search, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's all the same
Whoa.
artists. It's literally all the same artists that did all the stuff for Garbage Pail Kids.
How do I not know about this? This is amazing. It's totally
Yeah.
right up my alley.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, I don't know if you're that familiar with any of the stuff that I've done, but I'm also an illustrator too, and I have like dreamed of doing my own line of wacky packages just because I do a lot of graphic design work along with my illustration work, and marrying the two of those together would just be incredible. Yeah.
That would be fun.
Uh, yeah, so when you were a kid, you were into Garbage Pail Kids. Were you getting into any other sort of art-driven stuff at that time that you were seeing this as an opportunity for you to kind of like, did you start diving into doing artwork around the time you were getting into Garbage Pail Kids?
It's hard to remember. I think maybe a little bit, but the Garbage Pail Kids days for me were in California, and we moved back to Virginia when I was 7. And I feel like I started kind of drawing when I was back in Virginia. I remember the first time I thought I could draw, which was in like maybe the first or maybe second grade. We had to draw Rocky and Bullwink. And I remember drawing it and going, oh, I can do this. I can draw. And I actually, a few months ago, found that drawing. My
You
mom had
did?
it. And I looked at it and it looked like shit. I was like, wow, I M- My son's my son's so much better than me, and he's 5 now. So I was probably 8 the first time I remembered even being able to think I could draw, but yeah, I was not very good.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think Garbage Pail Kids. I don't think I immediately started drawing because of it, but it just kind of it snuck into my subconscious and you know put a put a stake in the ground, I guess.
Yeah. When did you start really getting into artwork as like a thing that you were finding a passion?
Yeah, I've had a lot of back and forth with that. I mean, when I was in elementary school, like I said, in Virginia is when I first started kind of really getting into art. And then I would go through these phases. I remember like fourth, fifth grade, I loved drawing. Like I was really into like glam rock, hair metal, and I would draw the album covers. I remember I spent days on like the Motley Crue and then the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction covers, with pencil, colored pencil and everything. And I brought them in to show some friends in like the fourth grade. And somebody was like, "Hey, can I have those?" And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess." I never saw them again. I wish I, I wish I had 'em. But then, I would go through phases where I didn't draw and then I did again. I think in middle school is where I started drawing. It's kind of the beginning of the kind of cartoony style that I,
Middle school?
that like became the Mr. Pickles art style. Kind of started there, kind of drawing my teachers and friends, drawing them gross or funny looking, just to like get a laugh. I think it was kind of around then when I realized, oh, I could get people to laugh, and I liked trying to get people to laugh, and drawing was a way to do that. But and then in high school, had gotten bored with art, and then didn't know what I was going to do after high school. So I was like, oh, I'll take some art classes at a community college. Then got back into art and got very focused in like painting. Went to art school. And for a while there, I had two different art styles. I had like a painting style and then the drawing style. And the drawing style was always usually more for fun. I was trying to do more fine art, but little by little, just doing funny caricatures, that style of art just kept kind of creeping in. And now when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I should have been doing that all along. I made sketch comedy for a long time, and
You did.
live action stuff, and little by little, some of my drawing style crept into little animations I was doing. But then when we actually got an animated show, it made sense. It was like, oh, I should have been doing this all along, I think. But that's kind of how it goes. It's like you gotta like just go with the flow, see where things take you. If I had just tried to go right for animating, I wouldn't have learned the filmmaking skills the way I did, you know.
Mm,
And I think, that's all kind of DIY style. So I think that
I was
that's
about to say.
partly what made Mr. Pickles probably a little unique, is that, I never went to school for any of that stuff. Just kind of me and my buddy Dave trying to make each other laugh, so just figuring shit out the only way we can. I would actually animate in Final Cut Pro, before Mr. Pickles.
Whoa. Now, how would you go about doing that? Because
I
I always
would
think of like Final Cut Pro as, yeah, go ahead.
draw in Photoshop and then bring it into Final Cut.
I
And then I
see.
had this like, I didn't know anything about animation. It just one day I was like, oh, I could edit my drawings together, maybe like 2002 or three or something like that. And
Yeah, and at that point, where you doing like, was it still kind of frame by frame in Photoshop, and then you compile it and get it to move in Final Cut?
yeah, sort of. I mean, I would kind of puppet certain things, like rotate a head or an arm a little bit. It was very simple, much more simple, much simpler than Mr. Pickles. I mean, when we got the show, it was like, okay, I'll focus on the storyboards, let the real deal animators, take over. I couldn't do what they do. My style was
Yeah.
always a little more simple, but yeah, anyway. So
Yeah, so
weird.
yeah, for sure. So back in 2002, and I know a lot of people were kind of like trying to figure out how to do things when it comes to animation that maybe were, the sort of like new frontier of, using software to piece together animated shorts and stuff. I know a lot of people were delving, like for example, John Crispolucci was, I know, experimenting a lot with like online cartoons, and they would do their animation in Flash, which still was kind of like, they would still kind of animate the extremes, and then I think they would just kind of piece things together, like kind of like you had said, like almost like
Mhm.
they would use the head and have a still body, and the head would kind of like be animated and that type of thing,
Yeah.
right? But at that point, were you were still doing it sort of for fun, and what were you working as a creative at this point, or were you working a full-time job that had nothing to do with it? Like, what was sort of sustaining you in terms of your career at that point?
Yeah. So I mean, in those early days, it's probably around 2002 when I dropped out of art school with like a year left, because I got
Where are
really
you at?
I was at VCU in Richmond, and I was a painting major, and I just wasn't finding much use for going to art school. I thought art history was great. I learned a lot about art through that. In painting class, it was just like I can just do all my painting at home on my own time. I don't need to be in the class, and I just bring it in and show the teacher. And the teachers weren't really doing much for me or teaching me anything, I thought, at the time. And anyway, I got really into video when I took a sculpture class, and they allowed video as sculpture. I guess it was technically sculpture in their eyes. And started playing around with some kind of analog editing. I was waiting tables at a restaurant called Tobacco Company, in downtown
Okay.
Richmond, and I met one of my best friends, Dave Stewart, there,
Yeah.
and he had a high 8 camera that his girlfriend
Okay.
had given him.
Is that like is that a little bit more advanced than like a Super 8 camera or?
Yeah, I mean it's digital, but it's not a nice camera. It's the kind with like the tapes that are like this big and it's got
Yeah,
night
yeah, yeah.
vision. And anyway, I told him, I always wanted to play around with video, and he was like, "Me too." And we just started making videos together. Ultimately, long story short, I just was having so much fun with that I dropped out of school, and I would just bartend 2 days a week for years to just barely get by. Just pay the rent and have enough money to eat and make videos and animations here and there. And so, no, I wasn't really working as an artist or creative. We were just
Mm-hmm.
making shit all the time, which is, if I was to give advice to anybody, I mean, I wouldn't say exactly to follow my path because it's just kind of crazy and all over the place, but I would say just make stuff to make stuff because you want to for years. Do that for years if you can, and don't worry about trying to make money. And if you, after a handful of years, you still love doing it enough, you'll find your way.
Why do you find that to be the value?
Because I think if you care about something enough to put your heart and soul into it, and to be broke and to not do it to make money, if you do that for long enough, I think your soul kind of goes into it and that comes through. There's a realness to art when somebody puts everything they have into it. But keep putting stuff out there, and soon enough you'll find people who like what you're doing, and probably a lot of people who don't like what you're doing. But as long as you find the people who do like what you're doing, and as long as you like what you're doing, that's what I would do. But the truth is, there's a million different paths.
100%. Yeah. But I love that. I love that perspective though, because, it does, I think, the way you're saying about like you put your passion and your soul into it, and that creates sort of an individualism. First of all, like everybody's trying to find their voice as an artist, right? And that is such a great way for you to do that. Whereas you're not looking necessarily for reward in terms of like financial gain necessarily. It's just about getting in your mind and your spirit about like, man, this is what really gets me excited. And let me just keep digging until I get to the core of it and find the greatness of what I have. Hopefully that's flowing inside there, down buried below, right? Um,
Yeah,
but the other thing, like to your point, and I think you're a testament of that, is eventually there's a little bit of a gravitational pull that happens because number one, you're refining your craft. Number two, you're doing it in such a way that's getting people excited because it's like, wow, this guy's really, putting everything he's got into it. And you can feel that in the work, right?
exactly.
And then the next thing you know, you got this gravitational pull that gets people to say like, wow, have you seen Will's work? Let's figure out if there's a way that we could like have him be a part of what we're doing. Is that sort of,
Yeah,
it sort of feels like that's sort of what's
yeah.
happened with you too. And even like with in the beginning when you were working with Dave, right? When you started to kind of get that project going, kind of getting momentum there. Like walk me through how that all sort of came together.
So like Mr. Pickles, or the
Yeah.
early stuff I
Yeah.
was making with it. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Pickles, it's kind of a funny way how that happened. I mean, we brought a live action idea for a show as well as an animated idea for a show to Adult Swim. We pitched the animated idea and the live action idea. And Walter Newman at Adult Swim, who's a great creative and executive there, he really liked the animated idea, which was a little teaser called Scumbags that I had kind of created and then brought Dave in to help write a pilot for. And he actually did some of the voices. And it was kind of it was very different looking than Mr. Pickles. I might post like a clip from it at some point soon because I just came across that file recently. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, long story short, we we pitched those both to Adult Swim, and they really liked the animated idea, but they didn't want to do that idea. They wanted us to pitch them something else. So they said, "Give us five
So they
ideas."
they just really quick, sorry to interrupt, but so they, although they didn't necessarily say thumbs up to the ideas you brought to the table, they were like, okay, but I like what these guys are presenting in terms of creativity.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, I think they saw that we could write a story, which is so important. I mean, that's more important usually than the art style, and a lot of different things. Yeah, they basically bought into us, and said, give us five different ideas. They can be a sentence or two long, and we'll pick one to develop. And so we wrote up five. One of them was Mr. Pickles, and that's the one they picked. And we actually said, can we write five more? That's our least favorite. Because at the time, Dave and I were kind of seeing it a little bit differently. I originally saw it as more like a direct parody of Lassie, which it still is. It kind of became its own thing, but we saw it more like set in the 60s. And when we really thought about it, we couldn't really relate to the 60s or 50s, you know? So we gave them five more ideas, and they said, we still like Mr. Pickles. So we said, well, we better figure out how to like this. And then we switched it to modern times, and then everything kind of came together. Then it was just like this explosion of characters. Then we could take this like classic kind of Lassie Town and the Andy Griffith Show kind of characters, but they're in modern times. So now they have the twist of having modern things, classic old timey characters on hoverboards, or this and that. And hillbillies with earphones, and just everything. It just was an explosion of characters. It all kind of came together. And got to give Adult Swim credit for seeing Mr. Pickles as the better idea, which I don't even remember any of the other ideas. But for
Wow.
us, it just needed that one little thing that made it all work.
Yeah.
And it
Did
shows you
they
how
help you
close, like,
reframe that? Did they help you reframe the thinking on that at all? Or was it just
no, that was
you
just,
two just kind of brainstorming on and on and on until you came up with this epiphany?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we actually gave him the first Bible and like outlines for the shows, they didn't even know that it was going to be set in modern times. They didn't know anything about it other than the two sentences we had sent them. You know what I mean? So we had spent about a month, came up with all these characters, started figuring out the sheriff voice, everything. Dave started figuring out his voices, and yeah, it was kind of a cool
What was that
experience. Just
like,
all these.
man? That looks like that would have just been a blast.
It really was, yeah. I mean, it was really fun. But yeah, I mean, then we made the pilot, or we wrote the script. Then they wanted to make the pilot, so we made the pilot, and then it was like, okay, this is 2012. It's like, okay, I love this show. I really want to make it. I see a whole world in my head, But are they really going to pick this up? It's fucking crazy. And then they did. We're like, all right. So we spent like the next 9 years or so working in that world. 3 seasons of Mr. Pickles and the spinoff Mama Named Me Sheriff. And those characters honestly are always still running through my head, especially Sheriff. I mean, he's like a split personality of mine now that I
Really?
can always tap into. He's completely different than me, But hopefully someday we'll be able to do something again with those characters. But yeah, I mean, that was a very cool experience, and it shows you how close an idea was to dying, and it just needed this one little change, and then boom, it's like a big bang effect of like all these characters just came to life.
Amazing.
Anyway.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, and I think this would be great for anybody who's listening who might want to go down that path. How did you go from, bartending in Richmond, hanging out with Dave, making, sort of super handcrafted DIY little films and ideas and concepts and stuff to going, you know what? Maybe we should pitch to Adult Swim. Did somebody come to you? Did you just find someplace online where they were saying, "Oh, you can make submittals," or like, how did that come about? How would you, knowing that you've gone through that now, how would you suggest others do the same?
Yeah, I mean, another weird, windy road. But yeah, so around 2006, we had already been making a bunch of videos for like maybe 5 years. When YouTube came around, somebody one day when I was bartending was like, "Oh, there's this thing called YouTube. You should put some videos on there." And so I put some videos on there, and a
Are they
handful
still
of
up?
them. Now, most of them are kind of taken down. Like back at that time, I would put like a Misfit song in it here or there, and like that was fine back then for years
You wouldn't get
with
shut down for
with
that,
the
right?
old YouTube, but now, yeah,
Right.
they just take that stuff down. But some of it's up there, but most of it's gone. But yeah, some of them kind of blew up, and we kind of realized, oh, there's this whole other way to get our stuff out there, which, is really what I think creators should do now, is just make stuff for fun, put it up on YouTube or social media. It's the easiest way to get it out. And we didn't really realize how helpful YouTube at the time would be, but it definitely it helped us a ton. So yeah, then some people in LA reached out to us and wanted to meet with us. We flew out here to
Wait, were you guys kind of blowing up at that point though on YouTube, or
a little
did it
bit.
just happen?
Yeah. And we met with some people, and yeah, I don't think anything was really working out except for these two guys, Ted Newsom and Laban Phidias, who were working on a network called Fuel TV. And they had a sketch show
Yeah.
called Stupid Face that they wanted
Okay.
us to come on to. So we started
As
doing,
writers.
we were writers, directors, actors. We were just making sketch comedy, some animations, some live action videos, very, very low budget. And I remember we made the first season from Richmond, and I remember we said, "How far can we push things?" We were never used to having like any
Free.
censorship in any way,
Right.
and they were like, "Yeah, push it very far." So we spent 3 months making like 10 sketches. We sent them in. It was like 30 minutes of content, and they were all rejected by the network. Every single one. And looking back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, of course. How are we thinking that could ever be on TV? I mean, we wound up getting some crazy shit on TV with like Mr. Pickles, but like, there's an art form in itself of like getting around certain things you can and cannot do on TV. Anyway, so we had to scramble to come up with another 30 minutes of content for the whole season. We wound up doing that, and
Now
then we
wait,
sort of,
well, sorry to interrupt again, but like
yeah,
were they rejections to the point of like uh what the hell is this? Or was it like, okay, this is brilliant, but we just can't do that.
it was like a mixture of both, I think. This was like 2007, so almost 20 years ago.
Right.
2007, maybe
It's
even
wild.
2006. And then we
Yeah.
started thinking, yeah, what if we go out to LA? So in 2007, we moved out here to do the second season of that show with Ted and Laban. Just kind of started hanging around with other comedians and other people in LA who were doing sketch comedy, artists, this and that. And we just kind of, it didn't happen right away, but kind of found our groove out here. We started doing stuff with Funny or Die, led to some stuff with Comedy Central. So by the time we got to Adult Swim, they had kind of seen some of our stuff. So it's all
Okay.
these like little weird stepping stones to Dave and I meeting at a restaurant, waiting tables. His girlfriend gave him a shitty high 8 camera. We started making videos just for fun, and and then the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and it was easily over 10 years of doing this without ever making a dollar. But
Wow.
so we took a long, long route that I don't fully recommend, but it is possible to go that route, I guess.
Yeah, would you shaking it all out now, kind of before we move into the next part of your creative journey, shaking it all out now, those 10 years, would you have done it any differently, especially given the advice you were just talking about maybe 5 minutes ago about the idea of like just kind of being able to zero in on stuff and this and the sort of like value in that?
No, I don't think so. I like the windiness of that path to get there, because you know, you learn things that you wouldn't otherwise. And on this bend of the road, you pick up something you wouldn't have found if you're just going straight ahead. Pick up this and all those little things you pick up at all those little bends. They give you something um, that can kind of make your creativity unique in its own way. And yeah, it's hard to say, but I would say no, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. And here's where we start talking about AI.
Yeah.
I was just kidding. We could talk a little bit about that, but it certainly makes me think about just the idea of like the beauty of how those windy roads brings about incredibly, kind of big bang opportunities creatively, right? That don't necessarily happen through algorithms and consolidating all this information that's already been done before, right?
Through shortcuts.
Yeah,
Shortcuts aren't always shortcuts.
right. That's right. So just maybe one or two more questions during this era. Were you at this point when you were having that run? Was the pay pretty good?
For Mr. Pickles? Yeah. I mean, compared to how we were living before that, I mean, I think so. We made the pilot in 2012, and I think just a few months before that, I had no money and had to walk like from Echo Park to downtown, so maybe like 4 or 5 miles to get a free meal at Dave's bar where he was bartending because I was so broke I didn't have any money for food. It's probably the brokest I was. I wasn't always that broke. I'd have
Maybe in the best shape of your life, though?
I'd have ups and downs, like we would get a gig with this network or that for a little bit, but it was never anything constant. I would do a lot of freelance editing, things like that. But so when we actually got a show, yeah, it was much more money than we were used to. That said, we weren't rich, but it was definitely a nice change. It was good to have something consistent, to not have to worry about um, how to get your next meal, and we could just focus on the creativity. It wasn't a ton, but it was better better living than we were.
Yeah. Now, that chapter must have intersected, right, with your work with Liquid Death, which is perhaps what maybe not people who have followed your animation work would say, but certainly it's the one brand, as it were, that I think most people probably associate with you with. How did that come about?
Yeah, so Mike Cesario, the CEO and founder of Liquid Death, he apparently watched Mr. Pickles for the first time one night and was like, I got to reach out to this guy. So he sent me a DM on Instagram in 2017. It was like, hey, I got this idea for a water company called Liquid Death. I want to see if you want to help me with it. And so we met up, and I loved the idea. I loved a
Where
lot of
was
things
he?
about it. He was in LA, and yeah, then we just started meeting up from time to time,
I'm
talking
sorry,
ideas. Yeah.
how did he pitch it to you? Like before you start talking about ideas creatively, like what was when you first sat down and he was like, "Hey, here's what I've got, and here's why I think you'd be a good fit for helping me." Like, what was his pitch to you?
I can't remember it all verbatim, but he had the can already, with the exception of the skull logo, which I did later. That was the first thing I wound up doing. Uh, and he had a lot of it's crazy. His vision was so great, and I didn't quite realize it at the time, that a lot of the craziness that we've done now are things that he talked about back then, doing a lot of crazy animated things. I mean, that was one of the early things he said he wanted to do with me, is that he wanted to make a crazy animated gory water commercial. And you know
Is this Murder Man or is this something different?
yeah, this was the very first animation. I think it was the second video that Liquid Death ever put out. Um, he really wanted me to do that. Now, I remember I was kind of like, it's a lot of work. It can cost some money, but we found a way to get it done. And I remember I sent him the script. It was batshit crazy, and I was like, he 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 loved it, and I said, okay, great. We're probably going to need to tone this down a little bit, though, right? And he was like, no, I want exactly what's on the page. It's like, all right, hell yeah, this is going to be fun. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it, he had a vision for wanting to do fun stuff like that right away. He wanted to make fun of marketing. He wanted to put a product out there that was better for the environment, which was something that in our very first talk, I really responded to. That was something that mattered to me. And
The
I
environment?
was, yeah. And, I was just going to work on it here and there, which I did for a few years. But the very first thing that I did was the Liquid Death skull logo, and I intended for it to be just a T-shirt design or whatever. It was just the very first thing I did after we met, and then he sent it back to me on the can. That became the logo. But yeah, I
Now,
mean, yeah, good.
no, I was just going to say, I am not as familiar with the trajectory of your creative work, right? I'm learning as we go along. But was that, it's certainly iconic, game changing in so many different ways, right? From a design standpoint, and so bold for sparkling water or water in general, canned water. Did you already have that style that you were kind of jamming on before that happened? I mean, I know with Mr. Pickles, it was definitely like leaning in that, but it was definitely more of a
Hmm.
simplified. Yours is,
Yeah.
much more detailed, very graphic, of course, but was that style already kind of in you or?
Yes, I had been doing, the style of the Liquid Death skull before Mr. Pickles. It was a huge burst of drawings that I put out in like 2010, 11, and 12. And I kind of it was like a hard stop as soon as I got a show, which is one bummer about getting the show was that I wasn't able to draw as much. I had to spend most of my time working on storyboards, which are like drawings nobody ever sees, rough character designs, which nobody ever really sees because, a character designer takes them and makes them look proper and nice. But, focusing on every little aspect of what you need to focus on to run a show. But so yeah, long story short, there were a lot of like skulls and drippy monster characters before Mr. Pickles that I had been drawing for a long time. And I would try to work those kind of just say the like drippy skull art characters into Mr. Pickles where I could. There's a lot of like background art in Mr. Pickles' lair that has some of those drawings framed in them. And um, I was always trying to work that in more, but it wasn't at the forefront for sure. So what's nice about when I started working with Liquid Death is like, oh, now I can take this other kind of similar cart, but a little more realistic and drippy and gory and scully, and I can do more of that. So yeah, and I kind of refined that through Liquid Death more and more.
Yeah. Now, were you initially a creative director, like right at the onset, or were you just kind of like helping him build out some creatives and stuff like that?
No, in the early days, I just kind of worked here and there. It was
Okay.
the um, first kind of creative working with Mike on stuff. you know, uh, doing a little bit of writing here and there, but mostly art related stuff. Even made a horror movie, a Liquid Death horror movie in 2021.
You did? What was that one called?
It's called Dead Till Death. It's like half of a movie. It's like 45 minutes long or something like that. A group of campers being chased and killed by cans of water.
I
So I
love
mean,
it.
I didn't have like an actual role. I just like I guess I was like a go-to creative for Mike when he needed something in my wheelhouse. And then I think it was 2022. He wanted to bring me on as creative director. So
2022? Okay, got it. So I am curious. So very curious about Mike's direction for Liquid Death. I think he came from very much a marketing background. I think he was with the VaynerMedia at the time. Is that right?
mhm,
I think.
I think so.
And I love this idea that you're talking about with make fun of marketing. Like that was kind of his idea, right? And as a brand designer myself, and we're always we're a very creative studio, right? And we're always thinking outside the box to make brands stand out. And I love this idea of how, in a lot of ways, he's being very rebellious because he came from that background and he's seen how the machine works, right? From your perspective as a creative who has spent most of your career sort of being independent, but also working with the machine as well, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure you part of the appeal was Mike's rebellious nature as well. That is very indicative of a creative like you and I, right? When you think about this idea of like making fun of marketing, what was it about his sort of guiding principles that were based on that you think was such a value to Liquid Death so that others can perhaps learn from that?
Sorry, what's the question again?
The question really is what is it about his style of making fun of marketing that you feel was so outstanding and important to
Mhm.
building the exceptional kind of brand that Liquid Death is?
Yeah, I mean, Mike knows the ins and outs of marketing so well. He knows, how to actually put water in a can and get it to the right people into the right stores and all of that. Mike is also a very brilliant creative too, and I think we clicked right away with his thoughts on wanting to make fun of marketing because most people hate marketing. It's so rare that there's any funny marketing. And something that Mike has always pointed out is that funny marketing is usually for unhealthy products. But his angle was, and this is part of what makes Liquid Death work, is that it's healthy. You know, we're making funny marketing, funny commercials for a product that's healthy and for water too. I mean, it started off as just water. Now it's, a beverage company. You have energy drinks out now and iced tea, sparkling water. But at the time, it was just water, which is like such a funny product idea and an
Mm-hmm.
essential idea to be making these crazy commercials and creations with. Yeah, I mean, I think that idea of liquid death being something that's healthy for you is, it's just it's great. It's got the perfect just juxtaposition of something bad and good together, you know. Uh,
Yeah. When I think of Liquid Death, I think of that brand being so bold and in your face and the reverse of safe, right? When it comes to a brand. And I'm curious to get your take on if you were to tell every business out there, based on your observation and working directly with this brand that's actually so unsafe in a lot of ways, what is it that, how would you try to convince and tell other brands that may be wanting to be a little bit too safe as to why it's valuable to maybe get a little bit more edgy than they are?
it's very tricky because there's a fine line with the ideas at Liquid Death. You can go not far enough and it's lame, or you can go too far and it's just going to be too much. You're not going to be able to do what you want to do. You're not going to be able to.
Get
Social
the right
media
kinds of
platforms will
people.
cut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a weird line there, but it really depends. I don't think every company can do that either. I don't think it depends on what the product is. But I think if I was to give some advice on that for other companies, I would say if you want to do something that's funny, to do what makes you laugh and to not do what you think people want to see. I mean, I would say that in general. That's more of like if you want to make a cartoon show, if you want to make comedy in general, whatever, or even not even comedy at all. Like do what you like and others will like it too. Or do what you think is funny and others will think it funny. Yeah, there's a lot of parameters to that. It's not so black and white, but you know, I kind of come from the school of just trying to make my friends laugh. I mean that's kind of where our stuff comes from. And with Liquid Death, in a lot of ways, we're still doing that. You know, when we're brainstorming,
So
at least
constantly thinking
initially,
of striking that balance. Like,
yeah,
okay, we still want to try and remember, we are kind of the cool kid in the industry. So we want to always like make sure we're entertaining ourselves and making sure we're kind of pushing the limits of what we can do from marketing, but also don't want to. I mean, because now it's kind of a behemoth now, right? So there's probably a lot more potential hazards, I guess. Maybe I don't know if that's true or not.
I'd also say, and I think this is relevant to what we're talking about with Liquid Death, but also just creativity in general, to be careful with pressure. You know, there's a trick to coming up with a good idea, whether this is for Liquid Death or for Mr. Pickles or just my own stuff on the side. It's like I personally have to kind of trick my brain into taking the pressure off. Oh, I'm just writing this idea or coming up with something for fun. Because your brain wants to come up with what it thinks is good based off of this and that, or based off of what other people think. And I think probably a lot of companies who are going to try to get into, you know, funny marketing will make that mistake. It's like, can't force it too much. You almost have to, and I think Mike has put it this way as well. You have to come up with a bad idea on purpose. And that's actually how Mr. Pickles came about. When Adult Swim asked us for those 5 ideas, we would do at that time what we called a write-off. And we would just write for 10 minutes
Spitball.
each, me and Dave, and we would write for 10 minutes as many ideas as possible, with the caveat that these are bad ideas. We're just trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah.
And we would try to really believe that that's what we're doing. Secretly, we know that we're going to try to pull something really good out of this. But if you can really just do that for 10, 20 minutes, and then we'd read off the ideas. And one of them was Mr. Pickles. It was one that I wrote. It was just like a sentence. And that turned into Mr. Pickles. And I think that that's how Mike came up with Liquid Death, I believe, as well, specifically uh, a write-off like Dave and I would do, but he came up with a bad idea on purpose. So
Yeah, I love that idea because it makes me think about a lot of times how I come up with when we take on independent projects, not coming from clients. Like when we started a CPG brand called Bernie Wilds, and it's got a mascot and all that kind of stuff, and it's a hot sauce brand. And I remember I pitched it to the team, and I've done this with myself mentally to lower the temperature of pressure, which is I use the framing of it's an experiment
right, yeah,
rather than saying we're gonna do all these big things and blah blah blah. It's just like it's an experiment. Sounds like fun. I don't know if it's gonna be great, but we're gonna try and do something wild and see what happens. But it feels like it's in that same
yeah,
stratosphere
definitely.
there.
Yeah, I mean, like even in the writers' room on Mr. Pickles, we would regularly, like sometimes every day, all the writers we would have a write-off. It would be like 20 minutes of just silence. We're all just writing, and then we would spend the next hour just everybody reads off their ideas, and there'd be a nugget in there. Many of the episode ideas came from that. Many of the best jokes from the series came from that. And with Liquid Death, I still try to do that. When we're brainstorming on something, I always try to remind myself to pitch the bad idea, pitch the dumb idea in my head, because sometimes the people that I work with, and even like Andy Pearson, our VP of Creative, or even Mike Cesario, our CEO, they might like something from that bad idea, and they might find a way to make it work their own way. And that's, I think, how the best ideas come about, is when, there's a little spark of something and everybody's able to add their little thing to it. But a lot of times it comes from just trying to make your friends slash the people you work with.
Yeah. What is a day like as a creative director at Liquid Death look like? What is it? Are you spending, is it literally a full-time job, even though you are creative director? Like, well, let's just start there. Is it a full-time job? Are you there
Yes,
taking meetings on a consistent basis? And like, walk me through that. What does a week look like? I guess is maybe a better question.
it really depends. Sometimes I'm more focused on art. I'm doing a lot of directing lately. So a lot of times my time will be spent on doing the pre-production work on a new spot. After this, I'm going to go do some location scouting for a new commercial that we're working on. But yeah, it could be, I mean, handful of meetings, but not too many. I'm working mostly remotely from home. I do go to the office sometimes, but yeah, it's a lot of writing for sure. Brainstorming on ideas, to working on scripts, to plussing up scripts, to then working on storyboards. I'm doing a lot of storyboards lately, the same way that I used to do for Mr. Pickles.
Is that pencil on paper or do you do that digitally?
I do it digitally, and yeah, I'll even edit sometimes. Editing used to be my thing.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will say
you
that,
did you
like,
did cut your teeth. Like you were basically doing like a lot. You were talking about doing starting animation in Final Cut.
yeah, yeah. I mean, editing is I loved editing so much. I was 21 when I first kind of was able to edit for the first time on Final Cut 2, or actually iMovie, but I just that's probably what led to me dropping out of art school, because I don't know, I just loved it. That to me is like the most fun part, or it was. I kind of got burned out on it after Mr. But cut to now, I'm still doing some editing here and there, but I'm not the main editor. Our main editor at Liquid Death is this guy, Tyler Beasley. He's incredible. But back in the day, I'll just say editing, I loved it so much that I would shoot stuff just to have something to edit. I mean, that feeling of like I shot something last night, now it's the morning, got a fresh cup of coffee, and I can just figure out how to put this weirdness together. That was the best. And I kind of lost that after Mr. Pickles because, when you have a show, you have deadlines and it's fun, but it's also stressful.
Intense. Yeah.
But I'm trying to get that back currently, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I started falling in love with I am such a low budget film person. Like I started doing a lot of like video stuff with I started doing road trips with my brother. I just call them bro trips. And the last one we did was we flew up to um, Washington State and rented a Subaru Outback and drove up to Glacier National Park, up to Banff, and then circled around the western part of Canada, came back down, hit up Mount Rainier and Mount Hood and Portland and all that stuff. And every day I would do like a video journal of our travels. So most of the time when I was driving, I would just be cutting and framing and making it interesting for my brother and I as like these little catalog of time. And I'd add music to it, soundtracking. And through that time of doing that over the past like 5, 6 years, I've developed a absolute love of video storytelling and sort of documentarian style stuff. And now when I'm working with videographers for projects we're working on, I'm always like, like, are you going to get it right? Are you going to do this
Yeah.
well? Are you
Yeah.
going to?
It's very hard to find the right editor and to trust other editors, but when you find them, it's nice also to kind of step away and focus on other things. Editing is just it's an art form in its own, and I have a lot of respect for editors. They make or break the creative. They can go so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Anecdotally, because we're around the same age, there's always that classic story of like Star Wars, the first one, right? Where I heard it was a total shit show in the beginning.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know about that story, right? Like, and I think his wife, George Lucas's wife, Marsha, I think her name was, like saw it and was like, and she like re-edited the entire thing, and it made it be what it wound up being. But apparently, it was a horrible, horrible movie before she stopped everything and got into the editing bay and like basically reformatted the entire movie to make it what it is today. Yeah,
amazing.
so huge value in good editors, man, who have a good eye and a good visual viewpoint for how the whole story can be told.
Music and sound in general is just so key as well. I mean, even
Yeah,
back in the
totally
day,
agree.
music is really what inspired me to want to even film something to edit in the first place. I would, around like age 20 or 21, started like visualizing things as I would listen to songs.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, that's the funnest thing. Sometimes is just putting something to music. There's also an art form to not using music too much. Then it becomes a music video. But yeah, having the right music really just
It's
yeah makes or
everything.
breaks it. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. I've seen some edits too in my day that are just probably even my own too that are just not great and they're totally wrong because of the wrong music. And then you switch the music up and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
That's why
Yeah.
Mr. Pickles days, I would listen through thousands of songs to try and get the right thing. And if I couldn't find it, I would take multiple songs and put them together, like royalty free songs that we had access to in a library and like make my own song with.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it's key. But anyway, yeah,
Yes.
good.
Yeah. So are you finding enough time to get on the board and actually, or on the tablet or, to get there and just actually do some drawing where you actually feel like, do you ever get in ruts where you're like, man, I can't, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to just, this is a problem. Clearly this is a problem I have That's why I'm bringing it up. It's so hard because I'm running a studio. I got kids and I love to draw so much. And I feel like I'm just getting started in so many ways, right? It's like, God, now I'm this good. And I still feel like and this is not like, I don't mean that in a braggy way, but
No,
like,
I know
oh,
what you
wow, I'm
mean.
at a certain
Yeah.
level now. And I'm like, now I really should be like just putting everything into it. But it's hard because I'm in a position of leadership where people are relying on me, right? To answer questions, to take emails, to take meetings, which takes away time from me being
Big
down in
struggle.
the weeds and kind of working on it. How do you do it?
Well, I would say it's much easier these days working at Liquid Death. It was much
It's easier,
harder. It's easier
right?
for me. Yeah, because at Mr. Pickles so much depended on me on the creative side. I could be quite a bottleneck there. Had to work myself into the ground to even get to the show to, the the quality of where it wound up, as far as like getting all the jokes in there, getting the look right and everything, making the stories work. I would have to, we'd get in there at 9 or 10 in the morning. Everybody would leave at 6. I'd lock up the doors, say goodnight to everybody, and then get to work. Because during the day, it was just nonstop meetings, people asking me questions, which is fine. But I didn't, it was a struggle to find the time to get the creative work done that I needed to focus on, like the editing or usually the storyboards. So I would just kind of work throughout the night, till like 4 in the morning, sleep on the couch in the office. Lots of the times, wake up, let the crew in. And then on the weekends too, I would work almost every weekend for large periods of time. So I didn't really have any time at all to draw. I really didn't really get to draw much at all on my own time. There's like a large gap of time where there's just not new drawings from me. Everything I had went into Mr. Pickles, to the point where it was very unhealthy. There's no way I could have sustained that. And there's no way I could do that now that I have a kid. But at Liquid Death, I have more of a set schedule. We have a ton of help and a lot of super talented, creative people, and it's just a more fine-tuned machine. And it's less stressful. It's different, but it's similar to making a show. But yeah, no, I'm able to clock out at a decent time, and hang out with my son and draw on the iPad or watch TV sometimes. By the way, the iPad has been a huge help. I've been drawing more than ever this last year or so because I've finally got an iPad, which I wish I had gotten one earlier.
What? You just got an iPad a year
Yeah,
ago?
yeah. I mean, I have a Cintiq over here that
Okay,
I
you're using
used to
Cintiq.
use, but it's before I had the iPad, it's I would have to not hang out with my son to draw something at the Cintiq. So it was plus I'm kind of hunched over. Now I can lean back. I was about to get another
You're like in
Cintiq and
bed like
yeah,
this, smashing the screen on your face.
I was close before the iPad to getting another Cintiq and computer and putting it outside, putting a tarp over it when I'm done, just because I wanted to be outside. Now I could just take this anywhere. It's great.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so yeah, the iPad has helped. Having a job where I don't have to work double shifts every day of my life has helped. So, and on
Are
the
you
weekends,
working? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say on the weekends, I try to draw pen and paper with my son. We'll usually on
Nice.
Saturdays or Sundays just blast some Black Sabbath and just draw for a few hours, and that's like the best part of my week.
Wow. You know what? When your son gets to be older, that's going to be what he says is his best part of the week.
I hope so.
I wish we had more time to talk, man. Can you tell me a little bit what before maybe the last question? What are you super excited about right now that you can talk about?
There's a lot of stuff I'm excited about. I don't know what I could talk about. We have a lot
Mm,
of
you can do it.
funny stuff in the works with Liquid Death. Always tons of really funny stuff, but I can never talk about that until it's out. I can talk about the elf spot that I just is already out. That was very fun. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
It's like a
Dude, tell me about it.
it's like a mixture of live action puppets and 2D animation.
Oh my God.
And the main three characters have black metal uh corpse paint on you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got like Disney musical vibes. It's pretty insane. Definitely one of the funnest and craziest things I've made. So I had the pleasure of directing that. Um, can't really talk about anything else Liquid Death wise, but yeah, I mean, as far as stuff that I'm working on for my own, I'm always working on art constantly lately. I'm drawing more than ever. I love it. And
Oh, it's
the fact that
amazing.
my son loves to draw is really kind of helping fuel that. I'm always writing some stuff on the side that hopefully will become something. What else?
Could potentially be independent
Yeah,
from Liquid Death. Yeah.
yeah, more windy roads ahead, I think. We'll see where things go. And that's another thing I would say is don't try to plan things out too much. Don't go like this is exactly where I want to be. I mean, I've done that before, and I wound up at different places that are similar. But for me, I've kind of learned to just. It sounds cliche, but go with the flow. Just see where things take you. And I got some fun things in the works, but I can't think of anything that I can talk about.
Boo. Well, what we'll need to do is once you've got a couple of those out publicly, maybe we'll have you back on the podcast and we can talk
I'd
all
love to.
about it.
I'd love to. This was fun.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you for this past 1 hour and 20 minutes. I absolutely love everything I've seen you do, man. You are mad
Thanks.
talented, and
Appreciate that.
super excited to see what happens in the future with all your creative endeavors. Keep in touch,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
let's do this again sometime. All right, my friend.
Let's do it. Thanks so much.
All right, man.
Have
See
a
ya.
good one. Bye.
Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram for all things Pencil Pushers at the Pencil Pushers Podcast. And if you want to see what I'm up to, you can check out my brand studio on Instagram at MRC Brand Design and my own personal spot at Ikimo Dasser. That's my name, Mike Rosado, spelled backwards. EKIMODASOR. So that wraps it up for me. Until the next one, be safe, be kind, and see you next time.